You've been told the advice 1,000 times. Eat that frog. Start your day with your hardest task. It sounds simple, powerful, heroic even. But what if I told you that blindly following this advice is the very reason you feel exhausted, guilty, and procrastinate even more? What if the common understanding of one of the world's most famous productivity strategies is completely wrong? The truth is, most of us are fighting the wrong battle. We think it's a battle of willpower versus laziness. But the real fight is much deeper, and it's happening inside the operating system of our brain. Over the next 20 minutes, I'm not just going to show you why the Eat the Frog method so often backfires. I'm going to give you a new blueprint, a paradigm shift, called the Energy First principle. This isn't about forcing yourself more. This is about strategically understanding your brain to unlock energy and focus you didn't even know you were wasting. Stick around, because what you're about to learn will change how you approach every single morning for the rest of your life.
For decades, the self-improvement world has operated on an old paradigm. We can call it the willpower trap. This paradigm says that procrastination is an enemy to be defeated with brute force. It's a dragon to be slain with the sword of discipline. By this logic, your frog, your hardest task, is the ultimate test of your strength. To eat it is an act of conquest. To fail to do so is a sign of weakness. The problem is, our brains aren't designed to work this way. Trying to brute force your way through emotional resistance is like flooring the gas pedal when your car is stuck in the mud. You just burn fuel, make a lot of noise, and dig yourself in deeper. The guilt and exhaustion you feel aren't symptoms of failure. They are the predictable results of using the wrong tool for the job. Today, we are dismantling that trap. We're introducing a new paradigm, the Energy First principle. This principle reframes the problem entirely. It says that your most important job in the morning is not to complete your hardest task. It is to protect and liberate your most valuable asset, your cognitive and emotional energy. The frog isn't just an item on a to-do list. It's an emotional black hole. Even when you're not actively working on it, the knowledge that it's lurking there is constantly draining your brain's background processing power. It creates a low-level anxiety loop that depletes the finite energy you have for creativity, problem-solving, and deep focus. So eating the frog is no longer a chore. It becomes a strategic act of liberation. You do it not because you're disciplined, but because you're smart. You are removing the single biggest drain on your energy first, so that the rest of your day can flow. This is the difference between fighting your brain and making it work for you.
So what is the frog, really? The phrase, popularized by Mark Twain and framed for productivity by Brian Tracy, refers to your highest impact task, the one you are most likely to procrastinate on. It's the task that, if you completed it, would create massive momentum and meaning for your entire day. In The Willpower Trap, the definition stops there. The frog is an external object, a report to write, a difficult call to make, a workout to complete. But under the Energy First principle, we must go deeper. The frog is not just the task itself. The frog is the task plus the emotional story you attach to it. It's the sales call plus the fear of rejection. It's the blank page plus imposter syndrome. It's the run plus the feeling of not being fit enough. It's this emotional weight, not the work itself, that is the real energy drain. Understanding this distinction is the first step out of the trap.
Why does our brain fight the frog so fiercely? There are three key psychological mechanisms at play. First is a microamygdala hijack. The amygdala, the brain's emotional center, is constantly scanning for threats. To our primitive brain, a task that is vague, complex, and has the potential for failure triggers the same fight or flight response as a predator. It labels the task as unsafe.
Procrastination, in that moment, feels like survival. It provides an immediate sense of relief, and your brain logs that, reinforcing the avoidance loop. Second is the zygonic effect. This psychological effect states that our brains tend to remember uncompleted tasks far better than completed ones. When you let your frog sit there, it opens a mental loop. Your brain constantly circles back to it, consuming precious cognitive resources. It's like running a very heavy app in the background on your phone. Even when you're not using it, it's draining your battery. Finally, there's the concept of ego depletion. While debated, the core idea holds value. Our willpower is not infinite. It's like a muscle that can be fatigued. Every small decision you make throughout the day, what to wear, what to eat, which email to answer first, drains a little bit of that resource. By putting off the frog, you are forcing yourself to constantly make the decision not to do it over and over, burning through the very willpower you need to actually tackle it. When you combine these three forces, you have a perfect storm for procrastination and burnout. It's not your fault, it's the brain's default setting, but we can redesign the system.
Now, I know what some of you are thinking, but I'm not a morning person. My creative energy peaks at night. This is a completely valid point. The Energy First principle doesn't rigidly prescribe that you must do it at 6 a.m. It prescribes that you must tackle it during your personal peak energy window. For most people, that's the morning, before the day's decisions have worn them down. But if you're a night owl, your morning might be 2 p.m. The point is to get it done before the fatigue of the day takes over. Another point of skepticism. My frog is too big. It's not a task, it's a massive project. Excellent. In this case, eating the frog doesn't mean completing the entire project. It means identifying and completing the most uncomfortable first step. That might be outline the report, write the first 200 words, or make the first research call. By completing the most intimidating part first, you break the emotional barrier and build momentum. Finally, some might say, isn't this just semantics? You're still telling me to do the hard thing first. The answer is yes and no. Yes, the external action might look the same, but the internal shift is everything. When you go from a mindset of I must force myself to I am liberating my energy, you fundamentally change your relationship with the work. You go from a reluctant soldier to a clever strategist. That shift changes everything.
Let's look at the story of Sarah. Sarah is a talented graphic designer who is a chronic procrastinator. Her frog was always starting a new client project. The stare of the blank canvas triggered her imposter syndrome. Under the willpower trap, Sarah's mornings were a battle. She would berate herself, try to force herself to start, fail, and then spend the day doing busy but low-importance tasks, all while a cloud of guilt hung over her. By the end of the day, she was emotionally exhausted, and the work she did produce suffered. Then, Sarah learned about the Energy First principle. She realized her frog wasn't design the logo. Her frog was the feeling of I'm not good enough. The next morning, she tried a different approach. Instead of saying, I have to design this logo, she said, I'm going to spend 25 minutes liberating my energy from this fear. She set a timer and did one thing, research and sketch the worst possible ideas she could. There was no pressure to be perfect. In doing so, she removed the emotional stakes. And a funny thing happened. After 25 minutes, the fear was gone. She was in motion. She ended up getting the bulk of the design work done before lunch. But more importantly, for the rest of the day, she felt light, creative, and energized. She didn't win a battle of willpower. She made a strategic move to reclaim her day. That is the cost of staying in the trap versus the reward of adopting the new principle.
So how do we put this theory into practice? This isn't about trying harder, it's about having a better system. We've created a 3-stage blueprint to reinstall your approach to the frog. Before you can fix a machine, you have to understand how it's working. For the next 3 days, your only job is to observe. Don't try to change anything.
Take a notebook or open a note and create 2 columns. The first column is titled The Action. Here, write down the frog, the specific task you are avoiding. Write the first chapter. Call that sales lead. Clean the garage. The second column is titled The Fuel Source. This is the most critical part. Be brutally honest with yourself. What emotion or belief is actually driving your procrastination? Is it fueled by fear of failure, judgment, uncertainty? Or is it fueled by a deeper purpose, a desire for success, contribution, growth? Write down the precise feeling. Fear the client will hate my ideas. Anxiety that I will look stupid. Feeling overwhelmed by the scale of it. This exercise does 2 things. First, it detaches you from the emotion, allowing you to observe it objectively. Second, it will show you, in black and white, that you're fighting a feeling, not a task.
When you face your frog, your nervous system kicks into a stress response. You need a physical circuit breaker to interrupt that response. The most powerful tool for this is the physiological sigh. Neuroscientists at Stanford have found this is the fastest way to calm down. Here's how it works. Take a deep inhale through your nose. Then, once your lungs are full, take another short, sharp inhale to fully inflate them. Then, a long, slow exhale through your mouth. Do this 1 to 3 times right before you intend to start your task. This sends a signal to your brainstem to slow your heart rate and exit the state of panic. It doesn't solve the problem, but it stabilizes the system so you can think clearly. It gives you a moment of space between the stimulus, seeing the frog, and the response, running from it. Now that the system is stable, it's time to upgrade the 2 core components that are causing the problem. The first upgrade is to replace your perfectionism filter. For many of us, perfectionism is the reason we never start. We fear the outcome won't be flawless. We're going to replace it with the 85% filter. Consciously give yourself permission to create a version that is only 85% good, an 85% draft, an 85% workout. This dramatically lowers the emotional barrier to entry. You can always go back and add the final 15% later, but you'll be surprised how often 85% is more than enough. The second and most profound upgrade is to change your power source. Your journal from stage 1 may have revealed that you're running on the energy of achievement, the desire for validation, the avoidance of criticism, the need to prove your worth. This is a volatile, anxiety-producing fuel. We need to shift to running on core values. Before you begin the task, ask yourself, what value of mine does completing this serve? It's not about getting praised. Maybe it serves your value of dependability to your team, or your value of growth by learning a new skill, or your value of freedom by clearing your mental space. When you connect a difficult task to a core value, you change the fuel source from external fear to internal purpose. And purpose is a much more sustainable source of energy. We started this journey in a world dominated by the willpower trap, where you felt guilty and exhausted, believing your procrastination was a personal failure. We uncovered a deeper truth. You don't avoid work, you avoid a feeling. We introduced the energy first principle, reframing eating the frog not as a test of strength, but as a strategic act of liberation. And then we gave you a clear blueprint to diagnose your machine, to understand its real fuel, to stabilize your system with breath, to create space, and to upgrade your core components by replacing perfectionism with progress and achievement with value. The transformation here is profound. You go from being a slave to your to-do list to being an architect of your energy. You no longer have to fight yourself every morning. Instead, you begin each day with a deliberate act to give yourself the greatest gift possible, empowered clarity. Your mission now is simple. Don't try to do all of this at once. Just start with stage 1. For the next 3 days, become a scientist of your own mind. Observe your frog. Understand its fuel source. And in the comments below, I want you to share one thing. Not what your frog is, but what was the real emotional fuel source you discovered was holding you back. By sharing it, you not only help yourself, but you help everyone else in this community feel a little less alone. Thank you for taking the time to invest in yourself. Now go and reclaim your energy.